classes.
Well, I mean,
it's
just part of
I can see all of the lovely faces still that are watching.
Welcome to Wednesday night's Bible study. My name is Philip Brand, and this is Grayson Snyder.
That's me.
Yeah, as my app would say, my little Siri would say, Cinder. That has more to do with how I spelled it than Siri's ability to pronounce things.
We've reached acceptance. Mm-hmm. I'm glad.
That's right, Cinder. Well, the title, Grayson, of this lesson is Things You Don't Want to Talk About.
I'm happy to be here.
Things you don't want to talk about. So we're in what some would consider to be the driest part of Exodus. And it's right after all the big events have happened.
Yeah.
They've been spoken to on a mountain. They've been given 10 commandments. And then starting in chapter 21, actually in 20, they started to break down how to apply those 10 commandments in everyday life. The reason this is things you don't want to talk about is because today, we're recording this one day after Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
Right? And tomorrow, of course, is Wednesday when you're going to be watching this. But the point is, the week of, that holiday, we're talking about slaves. And I didn't plan it. I didn't plan it this way. We started, 2 years ago-ish?
Something like that.
At least last year.
Yeah.
This, last fall.
Yeah.
Last fall. No, 2 falls ago now. That would be 2024. We started Exodus. Had no idea that it would fall this way. Absolutely not. So then, things you don't want to talk about. Well, there's just things you don't want to talk about. And this is one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are. Gen X guy. Whatever I am, I have no idea what I am. But here we are. So a couple of things to kind of set the tone.
Oh, we're setting the tone about slavery.
We need to set the tone. First of all, we are getting into a section where the 10 Commandments are worked out in everyday situations.
Right.
This is how you take this commandment and you work it out in everyday situations. This is not all-inclusive. I know I just said slavery, so I need to probably define that. In other words, it doesn't go over everything that could possibly happen and how to apply the 10 Commandments to everything that could possibly happen. What it does is it gives you case studies so that if these things happen, this is an example of how it was applied so that you can learn how it was applied and then take your situation and see if it fits that case study and anywhere within that arena how you're supposed to judge that situation.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, it's an A, this happened. B, this is how you're supposed to judge it and respond. These are the penalties.
That's right.
So if A happens, then if something like A happens, then something like B should be the consequence of what the something like A was.
Gotcha.
So that's the thought process. So as you look at Exodus, you need to look at it from that perspective. What often happens is that people take the words, create situations that really don't exist, and these are just case studies. Our government, our judicial system does the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So a case comes before them, and they cite cases in order to make a decision.
Yep.
That's precisely what is happening here. This is a guide. So then we get to slaves. Yes, the Bible has slaves in it. And no matter how you turn it, it's slaves all the way from the Old Testament, all the way through the New Testament. Because even the Apostle Paul addresses a master-slave relationship in the New Testament. It is just there. I do not like slavery, so I think Grayson doesn't either.
I think that's a safe assumption.
Think we can go? I mean, it's not something that we would like to see in our communities.
Right.
It's not something that we'd like to see in our nation. I would say I am not glad we had the Civil War. But I'm glad slaves were freed. It took a period of time for them all to get freed. And I'm glad that there was an equal rights sort of thing. I think that we have taken that way beyond what it should be in 2026. But I think people should be free, and I think people should have an equal say in our country. I think that they should, right? So I don't approve of slaves, but at the same time, the Bible speaks to it. Now, why would the Bible speak to something that we would view to be wrong? Well, here's why. And to answer that question, let's just start with divorce. Why did Jesus tell the Pharisees and his disciples why there was why God allowed divorce in the Old Testament? What was his answer to that?
I'm glad I studied for this. In heaven, there will not be man and wife like we know it.
Okay, well, that's a little different. Jesus said, Moses gave you permission to get a divorce because of the hardness of your heart.
Yeah.
So the Bible speaks to what is right and wrong. That would be the Ten Commandments. This is right, this is wrong, this is how you should guide your life. But it also speaks to the way that God knows that humankind is going to organize themselves. And God knows that mankind is not always going to follow him and do things accordingly. But there's some systems that are put into place that are very hard to get rid of. Like, it's just not a switch. Just like our Civil War. Yeah. As soon as the Civil War was over, it took at least, people don't know this, 30 to 50 years for people not to have slaves anymore. It was a transition time. And so the Bible speaks to every culture on this planet. And whether we like it or not, there are countries in the world that still have slavery. Yep. In fact, I don't know how prominent this is known, but we border one. Right, where there's one on our border.
Canada.
It's not Canada. It's not Canada. Well, now you know which one it is. So, and you may argue, what do you mean by that? Well, if you really look at it, there are people being sold all the time, right? Sold and exchanged and all that kind of stuff. So the Bible speaks to any culture, and God knows that mankind is going to make their own decisions, their own policies. And when they do that, this is how they're supposed to protect the people those policies could potentially hurt. So the Bible speaks to slaves and slavery in that particular regard. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, to give instruction.
Yep.
Does the Bible promote slavery? No, it doesn't. But does it talk about or speak to the cultures that have it? Absolutely. In a hope that one day they would just give it up, I think.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it's a good reminder.
Yeah. So, here's another thing. God gives some laws and instructions, like I said, to people because of the hardness of their hearts, not because he approves. And then there is the role of government. What we need to understand is in Scripture, there are different laws or governing things for me personally than there is for the government. Or there is for the church than there is for the individual people. For individual people, we might live in a country that promotes slavery.
Right.
We don't, but you might live in a country that promotes slavery. Well, this is how you handle your slaves in that particular environment. The New Testament would speak a lot more to this, I think. I have to be careful with that because there's a lot said about slaves in the Pentateuch. But the New Testament speaks a lot to it as well. So that said, and that caveat, do you think that kind of sets the tone for what we're about to talk about?
Yeah.
Do you think it's adequate?
I think, yeah.
Any questions come to your mind? Because there might be questions that they have that you might have,
Questions about slavery.
Yeah, and how, as we approach this text, is everything I just said, anything pop out at you like, I wonder what that really is about?
No, I think the reminder, God's not approving of slavery here.
Yeah. Okay, so when I was looking at this, I had two choices. I could either gloss over it and go real quick through Exodus 21, which is what the majority of people do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying the majority of people. So today I just decided to slow down. So we're going to slow down. Chapter 21 is going to be in 2 parts, more than likely. Okay, so that we can really spend some time with this slavery issue. Okay, and hopefully I will have a job on Sunday. Okay, hopefully.
There's a meeting tonight, so...
Yeah, but I'm going to stay strictly biblical, so anything I say is strictly biblical. Yeah, there is an elders and deacons meeting tonight, but they won't see this until Wednesday. Okay, all right. Verse 1, chapter 21. Now these are the rules that ye shall set before them. So he's saying these are the rules for how you're going to conduct certain things that might happen in your life. Certain situations you might be born into, certain governmental structures that you might be born into. This is how you operate. Okay. Verse 2 says this: when you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. So right off, I'm a little more comfortable with this one, actually.
Yeah.
Because what is happening here is there's one of the national Hebrews, one of the Israelites, that have fallen on hard times, or they just need work. And so they approach somebody that's a master, that's the owner of property, that's the owner of a business, and they say, look, I need work, you need help. I'm committing to work with you for 6 years. Will you buy me in order for me to work for you? And it was really a win for the master, the owner, because he has somebody that's willing to work for him. And commit for 6 years. And it was a benefit for the person because now they have a contract, and for 6 years they'll at least have some sort of income.
Right.
Not only income, but some of their needs would be met.
Yeah.
When you look at this, when you buy a Hebrew slave, what you need to understand is there was a lot of perks with this too. I'm not trying to gloss over this, but you have meals, a place to sleep, you're taken care of clothing-wise, and so it wasn't like somebody took over your country and the slaves came back and they were prisoners as well as slaves, which is also in the Bible, by the way. Okay, and also covered in the Pentateuch. But this particular case is when a Hebrew was down on his luck, he needed some work, he needed some security, and he sold himself into slavery for a little while to work for a master. Okay, really? So this verse 2 is very instructive. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. In other words, he's going to work for 6 years, and then when the 6 years is up, he does not pay the master anything to be freed. He is just free. He is able to go. Now, when he's going, he's free to go. The master is obligated under the law to actually let him go with some gifts of appreciation.
Yeah.
Okay? So in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 39, it says, if any of your fellow Israelites become poor and sell themselves to you, which is this case right here, do not make them work as slaves. Make them work as hired servants.
Yeah.
Is what. When they leave, you are supposed to give them something so that they can set up their life. So you have somebody that's down, luck went down, maybe they lost their job, I don't know, a rough season on their property.
Yeah.
They need some money. 6 years they work with this guy. They're trying to get themselves back on their feet. And then at the end of 6 years, they're able to, and the master actually gives them something to help them establish themselves so that they don't have to do this again.
Yeah.
Now that is a pretty good system, right? Wouldn't you agree?
I would say, yeah.
Pretty nice. So, yeah, so Hebrew. So verse 3, if he comes in single, he shall go out single. So Grayson, if you lived during this time and you had to get some work and you had a contract with somebody for 6 years, your mindset should be, I'm not going to get married during this time.
I think it wouldn't.
I'm going to do 6 years and then I'm done, and then we're going to see what happens with the women. Oh, actually woman. I'm not saying you should have more than one. Don't, yeah. But, what's going to happen later? 6 years, all right? If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. So, married couples that have children often go through tough times. They lose their job. The crops didn't come in, whatever. Well, the husband of the house could make a contract, sell himself to another Hebrew for 6 years. But what he walks in with is what he walks out with on the 7th year. Okay? Pretty good deal. Pretty like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, if someone was down on their luck, like either a single guy, a single person, it could be a guy or a girl, or a married guy goes in, he lost his property. Leviticus chapter 25 also speaks to the year of Jubilee, which is every 50 years. He would actually receive the property that he lost back. Of course, if you're 40 when you lost it, you'd probably never see the property again. But if you're young and 16, by the time you're 66, which is the number of the books in the Bible, you could have your property back. Yeah. So the year of Jubilee was there. And if you couldn't get your property back, your children could. So you have a wife, you have children, the 50th year, the land reverts back to its original owner. You might be dead, but your children aren't, and they get the property. Okay? So this is a person that's able to go free. But there's stipulations. All right? However, verse 3 says, but if the slave plainly... Wait, I'm sorry, verse 3. If he continues single, he shall go out single, blah, blah, blah. Verse 4, if his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. That particular word alone means bear with nothing on his back.
Fun.
Yeah, so let's play this out. You're working, the master gives you a wife, or you want to marry somebody that is a slave, you married that person. Well, if you married her 3 years in, 4 years later, you're walking out and you don't have to take her or the kids that you had with her with you. I do not completely understand this one. I don't know what to think about it. Do you? I mean, I don't know how to unpack that. But here's what I do know. This protects, in a very odd way, the master and his investment in her.
Yeah.
Because she is not a Hebrew slave or someone that has sold herself into servitude for 6 years. How do we know that? Because she's permanently the master's. That means she's a foreigner. She's a Gentile. If it had been the case that a Hebrew woman had sold herself into slavery, according to the passage in Deuteronomy I just read a few moments ago, then he could just go free and just wait for her, and then she'd come out with the kids.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. But that's not how this is set up. This is someone that's a foreigner. They get married, such and such. He can go out alone. I do not know. The questions I have is, how does that work with divorce?
Yeah.
How does God view that with divorce? I have no idea. Scripture really doesn't speak to that, but it does say he cannot take the children with him. Verse 6, or verse 5. But if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free. I would not go out free. Now, plainly says means that this is a public statement. So it had before he makes the public statement, does he talk to the master first? More than likely, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But once that conversation occurs, the master and the servant has to go to the city to present their case before the judges so that the servant's status can be changed in society. Okay? So in verse 6, then his master shall bring him to God, and he shall bring him to the door of the doorpost, which is actually the master's doorpost. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall be his slave or his servant forever. A couple of things about this particular verse. First of all, bringing him to God means you're bringing him into the city before judges. It might be you bring him before the temple if you're close enough to Jerusalem, but you're definitely bringing him before a priest, a Levitical priest, which isn't established yet, but
Right.
a Levitical priest, or you're bringing him before the judges, a combination of those. And they're saying, yes, we can do this. And then you take him back home and you bore a hole in his ear to show that he is now more than a slave. He is part of the family. He's part of the estate. He's part of the family business.
Gotcha.
And so that is real job security.
Yep.
Like for the master, he has somebody that he can depend on for a very long period of time. And the slave that is now turned into a worker for life, part of the family business, is now has job security with the master. I guess as long as the master has money.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what's going on there. So very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Hebrew slavery.
Yeah. Slave forever is taken a couple of different ways. It's not eternity. You know what I mean? But forever seems to relate to the master's life. So if the master was to die, then the slave and his wife and his children would actually go free.
Yeah.
They do not, slaves are not supposed to be passed down to the next generation, especially if they're Hebrews.
Yeah.
So if the slave is much younger than the master, that's kind of a win-win because you've got your job, you know, all the way up to the master dies, and then you can go free with your family.
Right.
Yeah. So there's the first one. What's your thoughts on that, Grayson?
I don't really know about. I don't know what to think about this section. I did have a question that.
What is that?
So you mentioned as long as the master has money, he can keep a slave. Well, if the master runs out of money.
Well, I am not sure because I tried to look this up before this. I'm not sure that the master can actually sell the slave, but he could let him go free.
And then go into slavery himself.
Yeah, part of the reason for that is he didn't pay for him.
Right.
The guy volunteered to be a servant the rest of his life, and if he had to let him go, he could let him go. So there is job security as long as the master can support him. Yeah, and a commitment. But you know, things happen even to masters.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Again, this is God speaking into the way that he knows some of the world would be governed.
Right.
And if you're born into something like this is how you treat people.
Yep.
Specifically, the Jewish nation, this is how you help somebody that is going through a hard time. Yeah. You don't treat them like the people you have conquered and made into slave servants.
Yeah.
You don't treat them that way. Yeah. Does it make us uncomfortable? Sure. Is it in the Bible? It's in the Bible.
Right.
Right. But I go back to this. We look at stuff like this and we figure out how the Word of God is applied to our particular situations. So you can take this and apply it to a boss-worker relationship. And that we are supposed to respect that person and their value of taking care of them and protecting them is very important.
Right.
So it's the values that we learn from this more than the ins and outs of slavery and what happens with it and all that. I think we get sometimes so messed up in those weeds that we forget the actual values God's trying to teach us from Scripture.
Right.
Yeah. All right, you ready for the next one? I do not like this one at all.
Okay.
Okay? And, you know, I've said before, there's some things in the Bible I just don't agree with, I don't like, but I'm not called to put my stamp of approval on there. I'm just called to proclaim it.
Right.
So here we go. Verse 7, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, right off, that gives you the heebie-jeebies. I know what this means now, and it still gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I know some of the details that still gives me the heebie-jeebies, right? But again, he's speaking into a culture, and somewhere in the world, this applies.
Right.
All right? I am not selling Aurora.
That's good.
Yeah. Seth is not selling Amelia.
I'm glad that you guys are.
I'm glad we live in a country where that sort of setup doesn't exist. And, that's great. Okay. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, he shall not go out as the male slaves do. Now, what in the world does that mean? So, behind this verse is the idea that when a Hebrew male sells himself for 6 years, free to go. In, what's that passage? Leviticus 25. I think I said it wrong a few minutes ago. Leviticus 25. If any of your fellow Israelites become poor and sell themselves to you, do not make them work as slaves. That includes females and males in that passage, okay? Here, the female hasn't sold herself into slavery. Someone else has sold her into slavery. The father has sold her. Why did the father sell her? A couple of things here. First of all, fathers, being the head of the household in this day, had the right to determine what to do with their children and their family in general. Just had the right to do that. Second, this isn't a selling into slavery like she's going to go work out in the fields. This is he has sold her for marriage purposes. So there's someone in town, maybe a master, maybe his wife, they just can't get pregnant. And so he goes out and gets what's called a concubine. So this is a concubine sort of thing going on here.
Right.
Gets a concubine because he wants children so that he can pass his stuff on to them. So the father decides to sell the daughter. This is similar, but not exactly like someone coming and paying the father because he wants to marry his wife. That's different. The son comes, pays the father to marry his daughter. I said wife. His daughter, right? But this is the father seeing a need that someone else has, and someone else approaches him, and they make a financial agreement,
right.
And the guy takes this particular daughter with him for the purposes of procreation.
Yeah.
Okay? So if she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, and that particular word for himself is a marriage contract, all right? Then he shall let her be redeemed. In other words, she can be bought back to her original family. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, because she wasn't really sold as a slave. She was sold as a concubine, which would serve his main wife.
Right.
And we have things like that in Scripture. Abraham has this, so forth and so on. Okay? To foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. This does not mean that they have already been married. This means that he has bought her, and they are trying to see if it will work.
Yeah.
So before they get to the marriage bed, okay, we need to keep before they get there, the guy says, I just can't do this. Maybe it's her personality. Maybe it's the way she looks. Maybe it's she's lazy. Maybe he's not what she thought she would be. He is the one that's saying no. She's willing to stay. In fact, it doesn't matter if she's willing to stay or not. That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. She's just there, and he doesn't want her anymore. He can't just sell her as another slave. He has to allow her to be redeemed. That means that the purchase price from the father returns it to the master so that he gets his daughter back. Or somebody in the family.
Yeah.
And they take her back in. And then she's free. She's free to marry other people, free for someone else to pay a dowry for her so that she can be his wife, and so forth and so forth. So before we get to the next one, thoughts, questions?
I feel like I can't relate to that one much, being not having a daughter.
Yeah, okay. Well, this one you can relate to.
Oh, great.
If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as a daughter. So he could actually make an arrangement with her father to purchase her as a concubine. He gets the concubine, is like, yeah, she's way too young for me, but my son needs a wife. So I'm going to designate her for my son as a wife. My son likes her. It seems like she likes him. It seems like it would be a marriage made in heaven. I think I'm going to make this happen. So how would you feel if your dad, he bought a concubine and said, hey?
I'd feel pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, they did not feel uncomfortable, I don't think, because it was part of their culture. So he deals with her as a daughter. Now what has happened is she's gone from being a concubine to being something greater, like a daughter, like a daughter-in-law, like part of the family. So she's been upgraded. So that's a protection for her. Okay? Yeah. So verse 10, if he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, clothing, or her marital rights. Let me explain to you what that is. This is the son. That's what he is the son. He's got this wife and he's like, yeah, but I really like this girl over here. I'm going to pay a dowry for her. She's going to become my wife. If he gets a second wife, which by the way is not scriptural, but if he gets a second wife and that happens, he cannot diminish her. Like he can't quit providing for her. He should give her food, which means good food. That particular word there means good for the flesh. So you can't give her junk food, like chips, bag of barbecue potato chips, and French fries every day. You have to give her like lettuce and lamb. So you give her good food. But you like the second wife, you can't diminish her. However, here's what happens if he doesn't do that. If he does, son, if he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. That means that every woman has a right to bear children. So you can't stop and prevent her from bearing children.
It's like their own little Second Amendment.
Yeah, you have to keep that going.
Nice, good for him.
You have to keep that going. And back then, women became valuable.
Yeah.
When they had children, so it's a value thing for her. Okay, diminish her marital rights. Verse 11. And if he does not do those three things for her, the son, she shall go out for nothing, without payment or money. In other words, she does not have to be redeemed. She does not have to come up with some type of purchase price for her freedom. She is free to go. Now, the question I have is, how does that work with divorce? I have no idea. Because divorce is wrong, right? But here, to protect her, I guess from being abused, for not being taken care of, from living a miserable life, she is actually free to go. Yeah. Now, one of the main reasons that we know that this is a concubine wife situation is Deuteronomy 15, verses 12 through 15. It says, if your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, is sold to you, he shall serve you 6 years, and in the 7th year you shall let him go free for you. So I referenced this before, but I just wanted to read that scripture so that we all understand what's going on here. And when you let him go free, or her, from you, you shall not let him go empty-handed. You shall furnish him liberally out of your flock, out of your threshing floor, and out of your winepress. As the Lord your God has blessed you, you shall give to him or her. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore, I command you this today. Okay. Yeah. So the lady still had rights.
I'm happy for her.
It is because we're Americans and because of what we believe about slavery and selling people, which we think is wrong. And I think the Bible would back that up in other passages. God, again, is speaking to circumstances that will happen. A lot of people are saved under governmental systems that they can't do anything about.
Right.
Yeah. So this is instructions concerning that, I think. So anything to add to verses 1 through 11?
Yeah, and Not really.
Yeah. It's really hard to digest, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Now you know why I was having such a hard time with it. Because Grayson and I and the staff talked about this a little bit earlier today. It's just nothing comfortable about this at all.
Yeah, I mean, living how we live now in this country, I know you've been to other countries, but I haven't. I haven't really seen a whole lot of this, and so it strikes me as part of something that's a lot bigger than I am, but that I haven't experienced it.
Yeah. So the values that come from it is this. The daughter is valuable enough to God to protect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if this is going to be the way that government does things, which God wouldn't want it, this is how we treat people with value, the sanctity of life. This is how we treat them as human beings rather than just animals.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, verse 12. Verse 12. This is the sixth commandment, which says, do not...
I'm going to go with kill.
Good job. Good job. 12. Yeah. Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. Yep. Real basic. And can I say for the first time in this Bible study, I am very comfortable with this one. I think if you strike somebody, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, death penalty, the whole deal. You have intentionally killed someone, and your life is the payment price for that life. It is equal. Some people say that's not compassionate. I think that it prevents people from killing people. That's what I think. And that's why God has it here. This directly applies to America. Yeah. Directly applies to us. And it's not a capital punishment out of vengeance. It's a capital punishment out of justice. Yeah. Justice is done. But, verse 13, if he did not lie in wait for him, but God let him fall into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place which he may flee. Now, this is about manslaughter. Yeah. In other words, what's being described here is the death was accidental. Mm-hmm. The strike was accidental. Whatever happened was accidental. It could have been a fight that the guy that just got too heated and the guy didn't mean to kill him, but he did, but it was a fight. It could be as simple as he's on his wagon and falls off his wagon. Mm-hmm. It could be, I don't know, any other type of accidental sort of thing. Maybe, they're swinging a hoe and happens to hit the guy in the head and it's fatal. It's a wound, but it was all innocent. Like It wasn't anything premeditated. In fact, it could be, you're working with your friend and you accidentally kill your friend. Horrible thing. Yeah. Today, it would be like, I've heard of people driving down the road and accidentally hitting people. Mm-hmm. Or you're in a parking lot and somebody runs out in front of you or a kid runs out in front of you. Horrible, 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 horrible circumstance. Yeah. And the tendency of the person that lost somebody is to get back at the person that killed their loved one. So God is protecting the innocent here. I know it's manslaughter, but the one that didn't mean to kill that person. So he's protecting them. So he's saying a place which you may flee. So we know that later God has designated cities of refuge for these people, that they can stay there and be safe until a judgment is made on what happened. Mm-hmm. So they stay there. There's a court session, whatever the court rules goes. And the court will rule if it was intentional or unintentional. Mm-hmm. So this is where we deal with that manslaughter. But if a man willfully attacks another to kill him by cunning, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. By the way, the altar is one place where you could have safety from someone killing you until there was a judgment. Gotcha. Okay, so you take from the altar that you may die. Yeah. So very simple, straight up, straight down. Yeah. Okay? All right, we're going to move on. Verse 15, whoever strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. Okay. Simple, easy to understand, right? That's the fifth commandment. Yeah. This striking is not, though this is frowned upon because it's dishonoring, it's not just a blow like this. This is a strike that is meant to kill. Okay? So the strike that is meant to kill, even if the parent survives after you tried to kill them, you are going to lose your life. Not only did you break the do not murder, the 6th commandment, you have also broken the 5th commandment, because that is not very honoring. Yeah. All right? Pretty simple, easy to understand. Okay? And we would agree with that in our day.
Right.
Okay? Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. Okay. Here is the translation of that one, the way it really should be. Anyone who kidnaps another and either sells him or still has him, he shall be put to death.
Yeah.
So kidnapping is on the level of you murdering someone. Right? So we know that that's the 8th commandment, do not steal, because kidnapping is stealing, but it is also equated with death because of that penalty. So kidnapping is just not supposed to happen. I can't even watch movies where kids are kidnapped.
Yeah.
I don't like them.
I gotcha.
Yeah. My heart just, like when they disappear from the playground, in the opening sequence, I just can't handle it.
I get that.
Yeah. All right, here's the final one.
Final one.
Here's the final one. And then I want your closing comments.
Okay.
Okay.
Like a courtroom. Gotcha.
Yeah, closing comments, yeah. Whoever curses his father or his mother shall be put to death. This cursing is not a word that's spoken in anger. You know how you do that? Like you get angry and you say stuff you don't want to say. Like I bet every kid has said, I wish you were dead. Or I wish you were not my parents.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah.
Or I felt that.
Yeah.
Right? That is not that sort of thing. This is when you go out and you really wish that they were dead and you curse them. And you are so dishonoring to them that to maintain the fabric of society and the foundation of society, it is equal to the death penalty.
Yeah.
Jesus says that if you have anger in your heart, anger that you wish somebody was dead, you really wish they were dead, you have committed murder. So if you can commit murder in your heart like this, then the penalty is also death.
Yeah.
And that's as far as we're going this week.
All right.
Just a fun passage.
I'm so happy I was here.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
I bet Seth is crying right now because he didn't get to sit in on this.
Probably so. If you made it to the end of this, I commend you on the YouTube. On the YouTube. Wow, I just called it the YouTube.
Yeah.
Also called AI the AI this week. I was wondering how long it would take me.
You're changing.
I need to stop doing it. Yeah, YouTube, as you're watching on YouTube. So what is your knee jerk?
I mean, I think we can look at this and be like, all of this stuff is morally wrong.
Yeah.
And I think a step past that is you've related this, whether you meant to or not, to the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And so these are all moral failures on the Hebrews' part, but it's also like if you're going to continue to disrespect the 10 Commandments that I've given you, then this is what's going to happen to you.
Right.
And so, yes, Christians should follow these because we should want to follow, some of the 10 Commandments. They're set in place for us so that we have a better life, so that we can follow God better. And just the sanctity of life that goes along with these. We talked about the daughter and her sanctity of life, but even the male, you have 6 years of working, but then in your 7th, you're free.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that first one isn't a good idea.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're down and out. What do? I can't get a job, but at least I can work for this guy for 6 years and then be free.
Yeah, I think our problem's calling it slavery.
But I mean, I think we are so specific for what slavery is, and rightly so, because of our language.
Right.
We need to understand that word in Hebrew meant an array of things.
At their time, it wouldn't have been, we have slavery.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been that. And they would have known the difference between the Hebrew servanthood
Yeah.
and conquering somebody and they become your slaves. You're subservient to you and lower than you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, for somebody that's down and out, they feel like they have no way to make it. I think it's a fine idea. Get somebody to work for you for 6 years.
Yeah.
Pay them.
Yeah, and if you could do it for life, you had that choice.
Yeah.
Once you were done. The next one, I didn't think of this until just now. If you obey the fifth commandment, father, singular, mother, singular, and there's only one father and one mother in the house, you don't have to worry about the daughter thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything runs. The son pays a dowry for his wife, builds a house, comes back, there's a marriage ceremony, and it's done. But because people could not get away from the culture that was around them, they set up a system that just wasn't beneficial for women. And
Right.
so God is saying, look, you're going to wind up doing this, and when you do it, at least treat the woman with respect, dignity, and the sanctity of life.
Yeah. So I mean, if we take this whole section's it's about slavery and about really human trafficking and disrespecting your father and mother.
Yeah.
But it's honestly a God saying, "I know your human heart, your human condition. Here's grace."
Yeah.
And so,
I really should take you out the moment that you buy the daughter.
Right. The moment you disrespect
The
my
moment that
laws.
your son decides to take another wife and diss her. I really should take you out because you're disobeying one man, one woman for the whole
Yep.
family unit. You're really disobeying that. Yeah, but yeah, God, He knows we're sinful. Mm-hmm. I was thinking earlier today on the way to work, the largeness of the Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
how big it is,
Yeah.
and where did they hang around? The tree. They weren't supposed to be around. Why are you hanging around that tree? Build a stinging canoe, go down some of the rivers that are going through the garden, do some stuff,
Yeah.
right? Instead of hanging around there. So the human condition is to hang around the tree. It is to do things that God doesn't want us to do. And God in His graciousness says, I know you're going to do this. There are lines that I have where I do take you out, but here's the way you're going to handle this.
Yeah.
And I think we need to look at chapter 21 and the rest of Exodus as that. The 10 Commandments, if you had kept them, chapter 21, we would have never had to have it.
Right.
Never had to have it. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a great way to wrap it up. Good job, Grayson.
Man, like I said, so happy to be here.
Yeah. All right. Until next week, unless there's snow. Grace and peace.